Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
I have to be first question guy. I always am, right?
I mean, I just said we're rolling. So today, welcome back to the Unknown Morning Show. Chuck is so thrilled because he's always the starter and he wants me to be the starter. And
Thank you.
I'm a false starter. So today we're talking about Saturday Night Live.
That's it?
End scene.
End scene. Saturday.
No, I'm kidding. So one of my favorite things about working with Chuck over the years was the time that we spent in the office when neither one of us were behind a mic. Back in the day at the ranch, you know, the morning show talent varied. We had incredible morning show hosts from Bob and Matt to Don Jones.
Don.
Yes, and then Tom Perryman would follow. And so I would roll in, you know, about the time Tom came on the air. So my first couple of hours before I went on the air, and then Chuck in the afternoon, we spent in the office working together, often back to back. Our computers, you know,
Yes.
faced opposite walls.
I thought you were talking about the first office iteration, which literally
It was
was
very
back
small.
to back.
It was very
literally.
It was very small. And over the years, as technology improved and as I convinced them to give me a phone and a desk and then a computer and all the things, because yes, I did those things. Eventually, we got to a point where YouTube was available, and Chuck and I would watch Saturday Night Live clips occasionally and share them with each other as show
Preparation.
preparation for the show.
You need that.
You do. And back in that time, there was a really popular comedian named Tina Fey. And she was, do you remember this? She was doing really entertaining impersonations of a woman in political office.
Sure. Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin. Lipstick on a pig.
That's right. and I mean,
Oh, my goodness.
And I, you don't want to say it started it, but gee whiz, it's sort of like the go-to thing now would be if you have somebody that is a famous citizen, what actor or actors, or maybe who on SNL is going to portray them.
Yeah. No, it didn't necessarily start it, but Tina Fey did a knockout job. It was highly entertaining. It was very funny. Of course, she had lots of content to work with because the political arena at that time was also highly entertaining, as some may find it today. And that continues. Part of what I love about Saturday Night Live is that it is a reflection of pop culture.
Sure.
And over the years, the cast evolves. And so my first exposure to it, when I first came across Saturday Night Live, I was a young teen, and the cast at the time consisted of Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry, trying to think of who else was on there that was Anna Gasteyer.
Yeah. Sherry O'Terry's never been given her due in my book.
I agree. Tim Meadows. He was the other black guy. That was his bit. That was his bit in the
Sorry.
90s. No, in the 90s. That was
I know.
I realize it's not great, but that was what the name of the bit was. And it was just, you know, irreverent humor and maybe politically incorrect today. But some of the great casts that I got exposed to prior to that through Comedy Central on cable, you know, Dana Carvey and the Church Lady.
Yeah.
David Spade doing all
Yeah.
kinds of fun things. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Mike Myers.
Oh, I saw Mike Myers on Wayne's World first. I wish that I'd seen him first on Saturday Night Live. But yes,
Yeah.
those cast members, I mean, you know, it's where Adam Sandler kind of developed a name for himself. And it's so many great actors over the years. And there's some great ones today, too. Obviously, I love Kristen Wiig. I love Kate McKinnon.
Yes.
Jason Sudeikis. More. So I'm naming a lot of actors' names before we get into bits. But this is kind of, Chuck and I have shared memories and conversations surrounding these casts and these bits over the years. And so I prompted him. I was like, hey, what are we going to talk about?
I said, I don't know.
I bet we could talk about Saturday Night Live.
And I was telling you, Maddie, I mean, you have Tina Fey. And like when you have Tina, you have to have Amy Poehler.
Oh, my goodness. The weekend updates.
Weekend updates. But one of my favorite, and I'm taking a slight left turn here on Amy Poehler.
I was trying to open the door for you. I didn't want to name her because I knew you were going to bring her up.
Thank you. But
you're welcome.
You have to, if you have not, go ahead and Google Amy Poehler and Andy's sister Stacy. You'll get Conan O'Brien clips.
Okay.
And there's a couple of years where she was on Conan. I don't know what the maybe 3-4 times a year, but they'd bring her on there. And the whole thing is that, Stacy is like, looks like about 85 pounds, and she has wearing
Headgear?
Headgear, that's it. Mm-hmm. Headgear, retainer and everything. But she's also expressing her love to Conan. And of course, when it does not develop, when it doesn't happen, she's like she's in the middle of the audience screaming bloody murder at him. Amy Poehler is so good. Tina Fey, so good. I mean, you could not have much of an argument in Tina's case that she probably opened the door for the whole nerdy girl phenomenon TV.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I'm looking at it from a female perspective. I'd probably not seeing it the same way you do.
Yeah.
I've been a nerdy girl all my life, so.
I don't see that.
Oh, yeah. I'm into all the nerd stuff.
All the nerds?
Yeah. All the Marvel, DC movies.
Okay.
I mean, we've gone down that rabbit hole before.
Okay.
But I also like comedy. Tina Fey, she went on to do 30 Rock, of course. Brilliant. Did you ever watch 30 Rock?
I watched 30 Rock. I loved Alec Baldwin on there.
Yeah.
Jack Donaghy.
Yeah.
And what was his name? Jack McBrayer?
Yeah.
I forgot his character's name, but you actually kind of wonder, because when I've seen Jack on other shows, and whether it's Conan or Seth or whatever, and he'll pop up, you often wonder if he is a character within himself.
Yeah. He kind of is the same character all the time, right?
Because you kind of wonder if he's not on the show, is he like somebody that sounds like he's from Vermont or something? Because there's a lot of people. Back in the day, Andy Kaufman was one that's there's a famous bit where he was on Conan O'Brien, where he got into a fight with Jerry Lawler, the pro wrestler, and Jerry Lawler, looked like he knocked him around pretty good, and supposedly it was fake. But to this day, nobody really ever says, which is kind of the cool thing about everything. At least I think so.
Yeah.
But that's just me. But Maya Rudolph, they're saying with Kamala Harris running, she's going to be in there for another 6 months.
Well, she's great. I like Maya Rudolph's work. Speaking of her, I was scrolling through YouTube this morning doing some show prep, watching some SNL clips, and I watched this hilarious clip. I don't know if you've ever seen this one with her and Kristen Wiig, where they're it's like a game show, kind of like The Price is Right. They're doing a spoof on that. And they're playing like the game show hostess girls, and they're in the same style of dress, and they're talking in this really funny accent. And they're the two that are presenting the prizes that could have been won by this contestant if she had won. And it is absolutely so funny that Kristen Wiig is like laughing through the whole thing. She can't hold it together. And it ends with her driving a golf cart through a sign.
Yeah. The man who personally I think he would do anything for the laugh, to me, was Will Ferrell.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. And what a career.
And, of course, we're familiar with Will's appendectomy scar.
Well, yeah.
It looks like his doctor took his appendix out with a beer bottle.
Oh, gosh. I guess, he famously ran naked through the square in the film Old School. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
One of the first bits I saw Will Ferrell in was actually with Sherry O'Terry back in the 90s, and they would do the Spartan cheerleaders routines. I loved it.
That was
so
terrific.
So much. And then he would come on and he would do these singing. I can't remember what the bit was called, but he would sing with Anna Gasteyer, and it was almost like they were like Sunday school church performers, and they would take current hits and they would remake them.
But he had a bald, fake bald.
Yep.
Yeah. That one. Oh, what was the other one? It's the one where it's an office setting, and it's it's a regular meeting table, except he comes in with a half shirt, and he's wearing a thong, but it's like with American flag, and
I don't remember this one, but it sounds like I should watch it.
And I think it's either Amy or Maya Rudolph. So they're at the table, and when he's bending over, his butt's right at her head, and you're like, and everybody's acting sort. Sean, what is his name? He was in American Pie. Gosh, I forget the guy's
Biggs?
name. Huh?
Biggs? Sean Biggs?
No, I forget his name though. But he was in American Pie.
Oh, that's Jason Biggs. Which character in American Pie?
Stifler.
Gosh, his career didn't last long enough
No,
for me
it
to
did
remember
not.
his name, unfortunately.
He was the host.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was the host. And what
Yeah.
happened was Will Ferrell's character's name is Dale. And he says, Dale, we have a kind of a dress code. What are you doing? Just trying to be dressing American. I'm a good American. And you're like, he's acting,
Yeah.
he's got the half shirt. He doesn't have abs of steel.
No.
He's got the giant appendectomy scar. And you're going, oh, God.
He's great at physical humor.
And that's what I liked about Will Ferrell. Obviously, the man would just go, will you do this? Yeah, I'll do that.
Chris Farley was like that too.
Farley was incredible.
Matt Foley, Van Down by the River.
Absolutely.
How many times have you heard somebody recreate that bit? I mean, I feel like that's one of the hallmarks of you nailed it. If people are repeating it in the office, you're going to live in a van down by the river.
I always thought what was interesting, and this is about Lorne Michaels, is that to me, Lorne is like a character within a character within a show. Any of the guys that have worked with him will inevitably, if they're on another show and they're talking about Lorne, they'll launch into their Lorne Michaels, which is plenty of Canadianisms on this and that.
When I think of him, I think of the Wizard in the Wizard of Oz. He's kind of the guy in the background that's pulling all the levers and letting all this crazy, amazing stuff happen. And he's been doing it for 50
years.
50 years.
Yeah. And the deal, because he was out a couple of years in the Dick Ebersol era back in the 80s. But, there was kind of this rumor floating around that when he retires, they'll hand the show over to Tina Fey, which that would be an excellent choice.
Yeah, I think so too. Big fan of Tina Fey. When I was scrolling through, watching some clips, I just searched SNL best of because I was trying to refresh my memory because I've seen so many over the years. I was like, well, what do other people think is the best? It might be in alignment with what I remember.
Sure.
And I saw a sketch I don't think I've ever seen before where Jim Carrey must have been the host or he was kind of guest starring on the show.
Okay.
And it's a bit with Will Ferrell. And Will Ferrell is this guy who's maybe on a business trip and he's just wanting to go take some jacuzzi time. And so the set, there's this jacuzzi, Will sitting in the jacuzzi, but there's a lifeguard tower next to the jacuzzi.
Okay.
And Will starts splashing some water on his face. And the next thing you know, Jim Carrey comes in. And if you didn't know it was Jim Carrey, I didn't immediately know it was him. He was that good.
Okay.
Over the top, nerdy, you can't be splashing in the jacuzzi. I'm the lifeguard on duty. And he's just so over the top to the point that at one point he's pulling Will Ferrell out of the jacuzzi, attempting to give him CPR.
Oh.
Yeah. A full on, mouth to mouth, wide open. And the way Will's reacting to it afterwards is so over the top and just disgusted and what the heck
got
just
shivers
happened to
over
me.
that.
It's intense. It's hilarious and intense.
There's also, and you were talking about Will Ferrell, and I was just thinking about, Will and Rachel Dratch did this.
Oh, gosh.
The Lovers. And that's just
anything with Rachel Dratch, man. She's just, I mean this with respect and appreciation. Just looking at her, I laugh. The way she just, her whole Debbie Downer thing. She's just, yes.
Oh, sure.
Yes. She's just got this striking face and this ability to get a laugh with an expression that's just incredible.
Well, I think it's, for these folks that do this, when Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
Besides the SNL anchor desk, but Norm can
funny.
sit there, and he got so, it's been well documented with the O.J. Simpson and the Michael Jackson stories. He got in a lot of trouble because he just, they were, no, don't do that. Well, what does Norm do? He leans into it, and he eventually got, fired because of it. But one of the funniest bits you'll see, he was on Conan, and they bring Courtney Thorne Smith out, and it's funny from the word go because, he does the thing where they do they hug each other and stuff. Well, he hangs on just a half a second and Conan's immediately looking like, all right. And so, and she's on there. She's off of Melrose Place and she's working. She just finished a movie with Carrot Top. So where this is going.
Or didn't go.
Yeah. It's really, but yeah, Google that. I still look at that like once
hilarious.
a week.
It's hilarious. I'm looking at some of the notes that you provided, and a couple of names jump out at me right away. And Seth Meyers is one of them. Of course, he's late night now, but hilarious on Saturday Night Live.
Sure, he was. I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm obviously at the anchor desk with Tina all those years, but I don't think he did a lot of skit work. Seth did. I don't
remember him doing a lot of skit work, but I don't know. I've always been a big fan of Weekend Update, and that really started with Norm Macdonald for me. I remember watching those, but who else did it? Phil. Oh, shoot. What is this guy's name? I was trying to remember his name earlier, too. He passed away. I can't think of his name. I'm going to have to Google him.
Hartman.
Yes, Phil Hartman. Thank you.
He was okay. Phil was the man of 1,000 voices.
Yeah.
He was a gentleman where his wife killed him and murdered him, and it was horrible. I mean, it was just simply he was one of those like Bill Hader.
He was so talented.
Like Adam Sandler, went on after the show to other things, did news radio.
That's right. I was like, what? I couldn't remember the sitcom that he was on that I liked, and it was news radio.
He did news radio with, Stephen Root, who's one of my favorite character actors. I think Maura Tierney was on there.
I think so, too.
Yeah. But Bill Hader, though. Bill Hader is one of those guys. If Bill Hader walked in this room and sat down in your chair, he didn't say anything, I'd start laughing.
Yeah, he's funny. He is so funny. And underappreciated from me because I think I just sort of take for granted that he's funny. And when I was scrolling back through clips again this morning, I was like, my gosh, this guy, I forgot how good he was,
The story has it that I think he was on SNL almost 8 years. And it was pretty well documented that he had severe anxiety issues doing the show.
Yeah.
I mean, God, who wouldn't? Seriously.
I mean, this is not live.
I'm anxious right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it was after year 5. I remember it was on Mark Maron's podcast, and he was saying that Lauren came up to him. They were talking just general stuff, and Lauren said, you can stay here as long as you want. This is like in his 5th year. You can stay here forever, Excuse me, and I think Kenan Thompson, I think it's 21 years.
He's been there a long time. I watched Kenan Thompson on All That on Nickelodeon. I've been a fan of Kenan pretty much since he's been on TV.
Kenan Thompson, and
he's hilarious.
He's funny, and he has
Kenan and Kel and Burger Time. I'm sorry. The memories are coming back from my childhood. I apologize.
That's okay.
I mentioned Norm Macdonald and Phil Hartman and Sherry O'Terry and all that, but I had the luxury of watching Comedy Central and getting to go back to the Wild and Crazy guys. I mean, I got to see old episodes of Saturday Night Live with Steve Martin and, the Blues Brothers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of those. I mean, when they were still finding their way in a lot of areas, really finding their way, and also just brilliant Eddie Murphy, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
Oh, yes.
I mean, really, really some funny stuff. I'm thankful that at the time that I was growing up, we had access to Comedy Central, and I got to see some of the greats.
Steve Martin is one of those actors and comedian. I mean, my first radio gig, I was so fortunate in 1977, and you could almost call it, by today's standards, community radio, because even though we were a top 40 station, we day parted a lot during the day. We had full news blocks, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things we were able to do is bring our own music. which was you just never seen
Foreign
that.
concept now.
Yes. And I had comedy stuff that I would play. Steve Martin, I mean, King Tut. There would be some of the clean George Carlin stuff that I'd spike. But yeah, that was fun. And, you know, I've always liked the fact that, like when I think of Steve, the jerk, Navin Johnson,
Yeah,
you know, the
yeah.
gas station scene, I forgot who was taking the shots at him, you know, need to call this in.
Do you have any favorite hosts that have come back time after time? You know, at one point they used to kind of, there was a skit or a few skits about the Five Timers Club. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Steve Martin's a five-timer.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, Scarlett Johansson is now.
Is she?
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake.
Because they asked her about the coat. Oh. And she said, I didn't get to keep the coat. I wanted the coat.
Well, of course it helps that, you know, she's married to the Weekend Update guy.
That's right. Colin Jost could get her a coat.
You'd think.
Maybe.
You'd think he could get her a coat, right?
You would think.
Do you have any favorites from that? Like as far as like when you see that somebody's hosting on Saturday Night Live, you're like, oh, that's going to be a good one. I better watch.
I don't.
I'm that way with Timberlake.
And I can see that. Well, I mean, and you're a fan of his music too.
Yes.
I think it's.
Well, and I watched him on the Mickey Mouse Club when he was doing skits back in the day with Britney and Christina and Ryan Gosling and all of that.
I do think it's interesting. Like, you know, Taylor Swift is hosted, and she's also obviously performed.
The musical guest, yeah.
And she's good. I mean, she's really. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen her do more acting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Did you see Cats?
Huh?
I'm a Taylor Swift fan. I'm not a Swiftie.
You mean Cats? You mean the Cats movie that bombed? That one?
Yeah, she was in that.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
It bombed.
Yeah, it bombed.
Yeah, it was. I tried to watch it because I do
Was
like
it-
the musical.
I'm not okay. Let me back up and say I'm not a real musical person. So that's
Yeah.
there's that. But how
fair.
was the movie?
It struggled. It struggled. I've been to see like an off-Broadway production of Cats before,
Yeah.
so I'm familiar with the storyline. Obviously, I love the animal Cats.
Yeah.
Had many throughout my
You have
life.
yeah.
Very endeared. I like Taylor Swift. I like a lot of the actors and performers that were in the movie. It just didn't gel.
Mesh,
It just didn't work. Sometimes musicals do, sometimes they don't. La La Land, on the other hand, one of my all-time favorite movies, and is a musical.
I haven't seen La La Land. I probably
My gosh.
I probably need to.
Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are amazing in that.
I like Emma. You know, I became an Emma Stone, a really bigger Emma Stone fan over. Now, I always want to call it Pretty Things.
Poor Things.
Thank you, Poor Things, because I was just amazed at how shocking that movie was. On the other hand, it wasn't
She carries it through.
She carries it through.
It's
I
brilliant
didn't look
acting.
away. I certainly was not bored. And that's part of it too, is, you know, whatever you're doing, comedy, drama, is it going to bore me? And if it doesn't, okay.
Well, she won an Oscar for both of those films.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
worth your time, just saying.
It's kind of like when the Transformers, I knew the Transformers series of movies was in trouble. It was when Mark Wahlberg was in it, his first one. And I was at the movie theater with my great nephew Matthew, and I had to take him to the restroom. And it was about an hour and a half in, and he said, "Uncle Chuck, when is this movie over?" And I thought, well, there's your prime demo. You've lost it, Transformers.
Hey, speaking of that, in relation to SNL, do you feel like there was a time period where you felt that way about like things just weren't gelling with the cast? I mean, it's still been on the air. It's been incredible, but some seasons, some casts, more effective than others.
It seems like I'm one of those people. And it's not that I point to the mid 80s and go bad. It's just that it's an area where if you didn't know that, if somebody didn't say, hey, Robert Downey Jr. was in Saturday Night Live, you would have never known it because he was there.
He was in Saturday Night Live?
For a year, yeah.
I didn't know that.
He was on it for a year.
Okay.
And I'm also not one of those people that get all misty-eyed for the first couple seasons.
Yeah.
It's almost like NBC at the time said, you know what? We don't need to use our prime technology because it looks really horrible and grainy, and it just doesn't work at all. And so I'm not that guy either.
That was like the name of it. Not ready for prime time. So it kind of fits. Kind
because I think at the time, too, I think when they went on or close afterwards, ABC had a show called Fridays. Howard Cosell hosted it, and it lasted maybe a year.
Okay.
When I say maybe a year, or maybe not
a
even.
full season.
Yeah, not even a year. One of the new people that I do like, her name's Heidi Gardner.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, the show they had Travis Kelce on.
Oh, I haven't seen that episode. I'll have to go back and watch it. I'm going to write that down.
Just Google it. Let me tell you something. It's one of those things where as you watch Kelce, you think to yourself, okay.
You get it?
Yeah, this guy's got it. I mean, on some level, you know, he's going to do a season of American Horror Story.
I saw that. I saw the promo for that.
And he signed up. They're doing Happy Gilmore 2. He's doing that with Adam Sandler.
Oh, my goodness. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And so, and what's so admirable, I think, about him in general is you have this guy where he just signed a 3-year deal with Kansas City to continue on. Mm-hmm. You know, in a sport that's rough, it's tough, it's violent, and he has a lot of plates and, you know, balls and everything he's juggling in the air. And he seems to have not lost his passion for any of it.
Yeah, you know, I think he must be pretty forward thinking in the ways that we've discussed on this show before that, you know, when I got into radio and I saw some people were leaving radio due to syndication and whatnot, I realized that probably wasn't going to be end game for me. And Travis Kelce's also a smart enough guy to know, I mean, he's probably not going to be playing football at 50.
Sure.
So he's like, I'm assuming this is, you know, I feel like he's smart enough to go, all right, while I've got this spotlight on me, how can I leverage this and start doing some other things to extend my career?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, you were talking about Googling skits.
Yeah.
There's an Irish dating show. Bill Hader is a bachelor, and on the show, Cecily Strong, Adie Bryant, and Kate McKinnon are the bachelorettes, right?
Oh, my goodness.
So as it rolls out, 2 of them are his cousins, and oh gosh, it just gets really icky, and it's hilarious because, you know, Bill Hader's thing is, so what?
You know, there's some skits sometimes that I think are interesting how they like when a host comes on and it goes well, it gets resurrected, whether or not people are still a part of the cast anymore. And one that got resurrected recently was the Close Encounters skit with Ryan Gosling. There's 3 versions of it.
Yes.
By now, I think he's only hosted 3 times.
And Kate McKinnon is like the wild card.
She's the wild card for sure.
Oh, yes.
And it's funny. He loses it every single time. It's part of why I like watching him host is because he is having so much fun on set. He is just enjoying those skits so much that he's laughing through nearly all of them. You can see him like ducking his head and he's like covering his mouth, but trying not to laugh.
Well, then you probably saw Beavis and Butthead.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that was hilarious. And I mean, it was just like, is this really happening?
It's like Heidi Gardner didn't even hide it. She turned around. You couldn't even do one.
It was like, did she even know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's like, did they surprise her with this?
Yeah,
like,
you wonder.
Oh, my.
But that was talked about for a couple, 3 weeks. And she had told somebody, maybe she was on Seth Meyers, and I think she said, God, I thought I was going to get fired. But why?
I mean, it was funny. It was funny to watch her crack up, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's great when that happens. I've watched Kristen Wiig do it several times with the various skits that she does. Like, she just gets so cracked up.
They break the wall.
They break the wall.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
gear,
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.